There's no separation between us and God. The only time any kind of a separation occurs is when we set one up in our mind, when we believe it. Then we feel separate. Pretty hard to be separate from what we're made of. We are made of God's stuff. So all of us is God's stuff. We're not all of God, but all of us is God's stuff. You know, it's so amazing, the power of belief, and how we can open to just incredible good or just limit ourselves. He reminds us, he says, like, think of if you were in a room with the doors and windows not locked, but you believed that they were all locked, you would be as locked in as if they were really locked. It's just your belief would hold you there. And so many times, our belief, you know, we've set up those locks in our mind. The kind of joke of it is, God law gives us joy and freedom, or God law gives us pain and unhappiness. We get to choose. What do you want? It's just here waiting, right? Now, most of us don't consciously choose to be unhappy, but when you see it showing up in your life in certain areas, it means there is some kind of a belief there that needs to be changed if we want our life to change. You know, it's interesting, life is not meant to be a struggle. Now, you know, there's a lot of consciousness around the idea of, yes, it is. It's hard. You got to fight your way through. You know, that's really not the way it's meant to be. So we just need to get clear on what we want, and God law fulfills it. It's not a fight. I was reading Oprah's magazine. I don't read magazines a lot, but I picked it up, and she had an article where she was interviewing Thich Nhat Hanh. It's so funny. We were talking about him in Science of Mind 300 the other night, and somebody said, you know, he's older now, and I'm still thinking, the young Vietnamese monk. You know, in my mind, he's still the young monk. Then I'm reading the article, he's 83, but you know, he's still young. Anyway, if you know anything about him, he was kicked out of Vietnam because during the war, he was trying to get the different sides to talk to each other and bring peace. You know, what a silly idea. So, you know, he's gone through some pretty tough times. In the article, it talked about how he had met Martin Luther King and how they really respected each other. And then, you know, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, how it was really hard for him. So he hasn't had like the easy life, but he is known for his peacefulness. He has books. One of them is Peace is Every Step. So how does he do it? He was talking about what we would call practicing the presence, living in the moment. He said, being mindful of each moment. You're in that moment. You're not back, you know, feeling angry or upset about what happened in the past. And sometimes, you know, it would take him a while to get there. And you're not in the future worrying about what's going to happen. So he talked about, you know, being grateful for your breathing. During meals, he said they usually take an hour because each bite, they savor, they think about it, they're aware, they're grateful. And every task they do, he said, we focus on being filled with peace and the joy of the task. How simple, no matter how simple it is. Because he knows that if he dwells out in anger, which, you know, he had some pretty good reasons to be angry, or he dwells in fear, he's adding to the consciousness of the race with those feelings. If he's living in peace, that peaceful consciousness is being shared with humanity. And so that's what he does. There's lots of people to be admired. I think we're very blessed. And don't forget to admire yourself and the beautiful that you are. Well, last Sunday, like I said, I was home, so I turned on Reverend Joel Osteen. I want to say Goldstein. Osteen. Now, if any of you have seen him, his church used to be a stadium. So there's kind of a lot of people in the audience. But it's interesting. You know, he's not a religious scientist, but he comes up with some pretty good ideas. And his message that day was about deciding to be happy. And he said, don't wake up and see what kind of day you'll have. Wake up and decide what kind of day you'll have. You know, don't say when, I get the new job, when I meet the right guy or lady or whatever, when my grandma used to say, when my ship comes in, when I get the big bucks, then I'll be happy. It's like, decide I'm going to be happy right now. And he pointed out that we're unhappy because we choose it. Now, some people go, no, things happen to me. I didn't choose it. But, at some level, we are choosing it by our belief. He also reminded us, guess what? We're responsible for making ourselves happy. Not husband, wife, boss, kids, friends. We are. And he finished up on joy is a natural attribute of ours. Guess what? If we're made of God's stuff, God is joy. And so let's embrace it. Let's let that wonderful joy expand itself. I love the way Emma Curtis Hopkins used to say, and Ernest has said it too,